And welcome back. Okay, so we are going to be watching part two. We're going to be watching a couple scenes. We're going to be looking at a couple images from the Love Has Won documentary from HBO about the alien cults that I've been warning about for years, which are demonic, which have ties to white supremacy, which, as I predicted, have ties to Donald Trump and the Make America Great movement right here in Crestone, Colorado. So as we look at the opening scene here, we see one of their co-conspirators. This would be an example of the types of males that they go for while purporting to be spiritual. Let's listen for a few seconds. Look how he just shoves his face with pizza like an animal. This was their father god.
My last job.
See how deep he is into physical pleasure? And he's not alone.
In the earth realm.
That you could just sit here if you're psychic and read someone's energy and go, really? That guy? Oh my God. And it reflects. You look at the whole association, you look at everybody, and then you go there and you see what they're like and their allergy to actual spirituality continuing.
My 60th job was running a Blockbuster in Las Vegas. And I love that job. You know, and I promoted everything they wanted. I went through sales. I raised.
Here's what I find troubling, though. If you don't know any better, you might watch the documentary and almost be programmed by it. They seem to have an association with everybody awake or awakening to the Matrix with being like them. They're not awake to the Matrix. They're not looking for any truth, but they capitalize on those buzzwords so they can make other people look bad. That's the agenda of HBO. And so when they take the money, Aurora and others, from the Crestone Bliss, and they participate in that documentary, they're actually then scapegoating a large group of people. Continuing.
Yet I was already aware that the Matrix was real.
Yet I was already aware that the Matrix was real, he said. So what? You're not awake to anything, but a person watching HBO is going to be like, that's a conspiracy theorist. No, that's a career criminal gigolo. Continuing, let's jump forward.
Years before coming to mission.
These people have zero track history of warning about anything. And then it'll also be apparent that they came as homeless people with nothing, and actually Crestone opened up their doors to them while some of us are suffering with nothing. So that actually also reflects on Crestone, the Crestone Eagle, and all those different people that helped enable that. So it's not really about Amy Carlson. It's about those people in Crestone and the people that are guided to cult leaders and master manipulators. And there's many white women that have been hurt by white women in Crestone. I've heard some of their stories.
Brilliant.
But they're careful how much they tell me. Because they know I'm going to talk about it.
I never heard that.
But yeah, poor white women in Crestone without status are treated animalistically, especially if they're older, and they don't have their looks anymore. So you have some older white women that went to Crestone thinking that it was about equality, and they find themselves basically in their car and or coming to Salida going, oh shit. And then you have some people that are here in Salida that for some reason they're here and they're not there. That's not an accident. Continuing.
I never ever heard.
Because why would we want to be here in the 5G unless there was no space for us to be there? Because they run that place like outlaws is why. And we, the reincarnated Indians, need to take it back. No.
But that phrase in my life.
But we'll do it through sorcery from the park for the meantime.
When she shared that with me, fucking light bulb went off.
So anyway, the point is douchebag A, male, meets douchebag B, female. And then they go on a master manipulation trip for people who are just naturally born followers and gullible. So here we have this situation where he announced that he's the father god, an awkward scene, and they're all in the bedroom.
Period. So, guess who's the master of atoms with me?
Of all people to call a master, she points at him. And what are they giggling about? They're giggling about the fact that they're getting it on. but they're making it out to be a king and a queen in a dirty bed in Crestone. It gets better, but imagine and know that this is happening right now at the moment that we speak in this never-ending story in Crestone somewhere else. And that would mean that there are abused children present. There are children being harmed then in those abusive households run by extraterrestrials and aliens.
You know, every man is always chasing a twin flame. I had found her.
Masculine energy you've ever seen on the planet. He was just being a dick.
And here we have Aurora, who I traded some, messages with, but that ended real quick. They talk about the toxic masculinity of this particular individual and basically all the guys that were involved in that project.
Literally embodying all the lower masculine energy you've ever seen on the planet, all in one vessel.
Right, Aurora, but you were there and you were with him. And you were with them. And he's not the only one. And, Aurora, there's nobody of substance who has any history of doing anything legitimate in that whole thing. So you were all co-creators in that reality.
At a birthday dinner.
I'm sorry.
The next theme that I'm going to mention is that there's obviously a theme here, a damaged theme with the original mother. Now, I now know the mistake of trying to make somebody your mother who's not your mother. You typically are going to see the bag blow up in your face. It's kind of disgusting what I'm thinking of, but, you can't necessarily fix it. It's like that scene from Boogie Nights where they're doing big lines of cocaine. Will you be my mother? Will you be my mother? And they do another line of cocaine. Let's go walking. And beware of trying to make anybody your daddy if they're not your daddy, because they may be planning a criminal operation for you, like something out of Heat, the 1995 movie with Robert De Niro. And they may plan to dump you on the corner of 4th and Burnside once they get your trust. So beware of the fake daddies. They can be very, very dangerous. But do you think that people learn this when they're an adult? No, they've made people on social media their daddy, continuing. And I'm just being a tarot deck here. I'm just clicking to random places that the universe needs you to hear.
Your mother, we're making this all come together.
Okay, they keep calling her their mother. No, she's not your mother. She's a con artist. See, they brought it on themselves.
Very simple things, nothing complicated.
Okay, and mother says that Jane Hackman gave her a lollipop. So they fail the litmus test to get out while the house is burning. Mother says, give me Kool-Aid. Mother says, clean my toilet. Mother says, clean my bed. Maybe you're dealing with the devil? Oh, the devil doesn't exist. Well, you see, going down that route of blind worship of the aliens.
That's what the site is for. The site is the foundation. It's mother's heart. Camera.
Yeah, go.
And like I said, I'll see them right here at this table in Salida, cleaning out their energy to go back to Crestone, do it one more time, and it becomes kind of like a seesaw. Ride My Seesaw by the Moody Blues. They go one polarity to the other polarity. Mm-hmm. It is sometimes like active drug using.
That's why I stayed. I killed her. Energetically. You see.
Greetings, everyone. I don't know if this video will go out or not, but
what I will say
Angel was
is that,
me, of course.
I didn't say this in the first part, in 2019, in around April, I noticed an uptick in spiritual warfare and possession that had me packing my bags, leaving my land in Costilla County, Archuleta County, Pagosa Springs, and I just saw a bunch of people messing with me on the internet that were overtaken by a agenda to make me homeless again. A demonic possession agenda to kick me off my land, to make me homeless again. And unfortunately, it happened because I didn't have anybody to back me up and I had no Second Amendment. But I knew that there was a transformation of consciousness happening from 2019 to 2020. And so before we even dealt with COVID, before we even dealt with that, I was witnessing people breaking down and begin to socially distance online in advance of COVID by 6 months to 9 months. And so there is some sort of intersectionality of the COVID event with a great darkness amongst the people. You cannot blame COVID and the lockdowns by themselves for what we went through during those years. And so I'm just intuitively interpreting what happened here. It seems like maybe the spirits or the demons or the aliens or the greys turned against them once they used them, and like I say, dumped them on 4th and Burnside for the next John to have their way with them. But in the case of Amy, by surrounding ourselves with these toxic males, seeing them as so supreme, apparently they drained her life force out of her and she no longer existed. Was it really the colloidal silver? Was it just the colloidal silver? Or was it a combination of factors? I'd like to also learn about what type of online business they had at the time, how many people were buying those products, and what type of psychic telepathic attention they were drawing to them and Crestone as all this. Because remember, these people they'll talk about aliens, but they'll only talk about good aliens. It's a one-track record. They cannot conceive that the whole thing is a show, and the U.S. military industrial complex and the alien agenda and the spacecraft obsession is the exact same system.
The amount of pain I'm experiencing is beyond human.
But what I was saying is, as we watched her cry in that videotape, I was also upset. In April 2021, I was duped to quitting marijuana and taking medication by a toxic immigrant doctor. And I say that because I'm always defending them. So God had to teach me a lesson about being in control of my own emotions. Now I'm totally drug-free, but there was a time where I was possessed by my lower senses to even be thinking that I can trust a doctor in the modern America. And I trusted the you-know-what because of her. And so I know that I was not in my best state of consciousness, nor was my mother, nor were a lot of people in 2020, 2021. And then I would say that the solar maximum cycle, really kicking off around 2022, 2023, ignited the spirit within. Even though we have wars and negative things that I talk about, my spirit was ignited like gasoline. In that September 2023 period, and I went from being silent, being inactive, being sedentary, taking medication, to being a full-time YouTuber again, like nothing had happened, like I never stopped. And she, the lady I live with, slowly but surely began to turn against me, because a public speaker was not what she invited down there. She wanted to change me. She wanted me to change into becoming a consumer of all things that she told me. And so, continuing on here, watching Season 1, Episode 2 of the Love Has Won documentary from HBO. Google it for free. Made 1 hour from here.
I'm working with the Galactics every moment. Robin's here. Of course, he's concerned.
Now, the names may change from Ascended Masters to the Great Brotherhood or Great White Brotherhood or the Galactic Federation of Light or the Pleiadians, or in this case, they come up with something new, but it's the same thing, the Galactics. And why would they say something new? Because over and over and over, they've been burned by Ashtar Command and the Galactic Federation of Light. So for people that are easily duped, who want to believe BS, they say Galactics or Pleiadians are like, oh, okay, so we're still channeling the good guys.
I've reached over 800 levels of pain. You can't comprehend that in human terms. And I apologize for breaking down.
Everything Mom was taking on and everything she was going through, her physical situation declined so heavily.
Mom is moving the energies since humanity's not doing it.
She has to pull us all up. She
has to pull 8 billion people up.
Okay.
So that's why the pain level is so high. She's moving so...
No, that's not why. She's having legitimate mental health issues in April 2021, which are not being addressed. And what they're saying in the documentary is she's crying because she's trying to save 8 billion of us. No, that's not true. And there isn't any accountability for them having a political agenda, you know. So when Aurora over here on the left saw what I had to say on my Substack page, who works the Crestone Bliss, she blocked me, and I don't blame her, because she knows that she and her posse and her crowd are to have nothing to do with somebody who's asking questions and who's looking at this. And again, if she's working with aliens, she's working with demons, and they're basically still influencing people around them that are listening to their spiel, that they're working with masters up in space. And there's going to be plenty of people that believe that they're working with masters up in space, the Pleiadians or whatnot, because what? Because she's what people would consider, excuse the language, a hot white chick. And that's all it comes down to. That's all it comes down to. She looks like a tall, Nordic, hot white chick. And that's what all this is about in the end. People are following these Pied Pipers literally over cliffs while disregarding actual masters with actual demonstrative history in their family lines of doing awesome things and not bombing people. Like Japan or Afghanistan and Iraq and Vietnam and all these places, they have an obvious history of bombing countries. So these are not the spiritual masters, especially if they're saying that like MAGA is legitimate. If anything, they're trying to get people in trouble. Now, do you think the people in Crestone have any idea what's going on? Or do you think that they're in La La Land, huffing like gasoline fumes, hoping to get a high, going up on the mountain, drinking some alcohol, doing tweaker sorcery? I've been there. I've seen it. There's really not much sign of Sufism, and they're all about talking about Crestone being a place where all the world's religions are welcome. This is the equivalent of a McDonald's commercial, where you go in and you buy this and you think you're getting this, and then they give you a kid's meal. And you're like, wait a minute, you said there's medallions here and that you were going to give me a happy ending, and you kicked me in the butt and you changed your locks on me. And that's how they are in Crestone. And then if you don't pay attention, they might drug your drink, get you high, get you on something and go, well, I got you a little extra. You want to come to the Cloud afterwards? We got a rave at the Cloud afterwards, the Cloud station. So, you'll have like a scene of the cool kids, and then once they take that acid, they literally end up being beamed up by Scotty, literally, and the aliens are talking to them, and the rest is history.
So much energy, her feet started to hurt.
Now my feet have completely given out.
It was very overwhelming.
By the way, this podcast is sponsored by Pizza Rio in Silhouette, Colorado. Pizza Rio, that's right, Pizza Rio sponsors this. I'm just kidding, bro. I annoy the hell out of them.
Because we didn't know anything. We didn't know anything that was happening. All we knew is that we would do anything to try to help them.
She says we would do anything to try to help, and we would experiment with different things. What the hell is she saying?
We would experiment with different things. For a while, she was able to manage the pain, with different medicines, and she would use them as medicine. Alcohol is a medicine. Marijuana is a medicine. If you're using it for that intent, and she was.
I'd like to see more of these secret tapes, especially the secret tapes where the great Amy Carlson of Crestone, Colorado, is demanding Hot Pockets, is demanding McDonald's, is demanding Burger King, and her little slaves are scurrying around. Yes, master. Yes, mother. As she drinks and drinks. Oh, by the way, there's a new bar in Crestone. It's the People's Pub. Yeah. And it's owned by a vicious right-winger. It's MAGA, 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 MAGA. It's MAGA, 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 MAGA at the new downtown Crestone, Colorado bar. Piggy, wiggy, wiggy.
We were told that this alcohol is basically what was keeping her alive. For the untrained
because that's what we need. We need more places to drink alcohol and get wasted and talk political smack over karaoke, and that's what they have right now at Crestone.
A severe case.
If I go there, Tom the Gunslinger is going to be there, and he's going to want to fight me.
Alcoholism. But she's the only human being I could see consume that amount and keep that level of coherence.
I've seen Mom do things that no human body could possibly withstand. Throwing up constantly, her ribs broken while she's doing it. I've never, ever seen anyone be able to handle the things that...
So it sounds like through the whatever, cosmic rays came in that 2020, 2021 period, depending on whatever negative things she may have done, it sounds like the archonic entities invaded her body and then began to break her down. From this happening to that happening. And you're only going to be able to stumble upon that by understanding how spiritual warfare works, how these demons, they use people for bad purposes, including, they'll protect, for example, an organized crime gangster like the A-Man for years. Nothing will happen to the A-Man. He'll just go and do his missions for years, collecting for loan sharks. And then just like something will happen to where they slip on a banana peel. And as they say in Wise Guy Goodfellas, it'll be your best friend that does it. They'll open up the door, something sinful will happen, somebody will get with somebody's wife, and then it's glass over the forehead, and it's a fight at a bar, and it's Roadhouse. And so from the stories that he told me, it sounded like he really rose to the top, was a golden child, literally fought in golden gloves, collected for Johnny Sparrow for years, and then something about the corruption of the Portland, Oregon lifestyle began to consume him. And then eventually, even though he left the life, he became a corporate gangster. And that's what I was talking about with Moda. He became one type of gangster to being a corporate gangster until the point where his involvement in whatever, and not just the steroids, so it's not just the colloidal silver, somehow chipped away at the spiritual shielding or the spiritual armor of God through bad behavior. And I highly recommend everybody listen to Manly P. Hall about energy fields around the human body and how actual human behavior dictates the shield of protection around the body. It's more than, say, praying to Jesus, or it's more than rocks and crystals in your pocket. It's the words out of your mouth. It's the energy. It's intentions. It's whether or not you're doing certain drugs and what you're watching. If you're watching corrupt content on the internet, according to Sufi realities, it's going to corrupt the heart, and then thus it's going to weaken the shield. And so what the media is going to focus on in this thing that we're talking about, which is the Love is One documentary from HBO, is that colloidal silver took her down. And so it's obviously something more than that. Yeah.
She did with such grace. Her skin started breaking out in boils, and her whole back was covered. She lost a dramatic amount of weight.
50 pounds have dropped off my body because of humanities.
Had to be a certain weight in order for them to.
Sometimes it's
Disguise and complete the ascension.
It is true, love. The team has been seeing lots and lots of ships everywhere.
the starships are coming.
So again, lots of blind excitement and trust of anything determined to be a ship. Now remember, we're in 2026 right now, and now most of us that are grounded, even if we believe in that stuff, know that we're looking at satellites, and not just a few of them. They're building a whole grid. These people working with 1980s psychology are looking at things that they don't understand that are in the ships, and they're going, Daddy, Mommy. You know, it's literally that scene from Independence Day where she's on top of, like, you know, the skyscraper, and like the aliens, like, you know, nuke. But we're not getting nuked by the aliens, but they're influencing them. Okay, so yeah, they'll see a cloud that looks a certain way, and they'll assume that the Galactic Federation of your saviors are in that cloud waiting to beam you up. Now, you also should look at the fact that not all racial demographics in America are engaging in this behavior. This is behavior that seems to really stick with people that have a history of being duped by witches and goblins and Saurons and things of that nature.
There, that looks like a cloud ship.
And so now you understand why certain people have certain belief systems where they don't believe in channeling, psychic divination, even though I believe that some people can do it. But a lot of people are not responsible for their own thoughts. And this is ultimately a longer conversation for another time about mind control prevention, and the purpose in the modern world of not only certain prayers and rituals, but certain things like terahertz bracelets, suganite, Yeah. Continuing to watch this documentary and talk over it, then upload it. The name of my channel is what? Solar Wars and Gnosis. So we'll talk about the influence of the sun over the wars that we're seeing and the craziness that we're seeing, but also the catalyst for spiritual insight. I'm going to move forward from calling it Colorado Dreaming because it's sort of a nightmare, you know, and there's not really much more to say about it.
Will start to come in. We watched her spin. She's like, I'm not God. Everything.
I can tell you the locals in Crestone and Salida are not impressed with my ability to call a spade a spade. So we'll just go back to some of the larger ticket item conversations like this.
Done? Is it real? What if I made all of this up? What if I'm just crazy and everything I've done?
Those are all legitimate questions. Yes, yes. See what she's doing? She's putting down Amy for trying to awaken. And then she's like, oh, that's so sad. She's trying to awaken. She's like, what if it was all real? What if it was all fake? See, that's the first step in my mom healing. That's the first step in a lot of people healing. Realizing that they've been duped. Because of the current level of narcissism in America and social media. People are like lying all the time, never saying sorry, never reflect on the past. In fact, my mom will say that I rewrite the past, which is exactly what she was. She won't actually address the past and how alien veneration and her brother making methamphetamines and God knows what else contributed to their white world order, their land being sold from under their feet because of the spirit of adultery. Now, with of course, they can blame it on grandma and go, well, grandma this, grandma that, but it seemed to be a group effort of a lot of people taking Bill Nagel's land for granted, essentially. Who's to say that through their drug activities and adultery and sexual activities and whatever happened in the barn, then calling in the aliens that would probably follow us from the forced marches to Seattle back to Aurora, Oregon. See, this was all overlaid with child abuse. And I tell people all the time that my mother's involvement in the New Age movement and perhaps some men seem to influence abuse. Now, when you watch this documentary, when you watch the Vice documentary, which we can watch next if you're interested, we could see that there are allegations of child abuse.
It was all just fake and it wasn't real. And we just sit there and it's hard.
This is part 2. We'll get to part 3 later.
Breaking.
I just don't think she had a way out.
So,
if this was you,
Takes Kaleido.
I hadn't talked to her in so long. I hadn't seen her in so long. And I found the exposed Love Has One page.
I don't know what the fuck's going on. And somehow I'm involved.
I was taken back about how she looked and the condition she was
begin with.
And
now humanity just fucked her.
And there was.
And then here we go. They're playing the victim card. It sounds like they had a business. They had products. How did humanity fuck them over? They had a community. They had each other. What were they expecting? I think they were expecting humanity to elevate her to a godlike status. Okay, if they got in her brain and they drove it in her brain that she was to be elevated by the world when she looks like a friggin' toad, along with everybody who's hanging out with her. And you would think that people would be able to connect the dots and realize that the whole current political deception is based on things like this, where the dreams are invaded and the implant is put there. And then people start hallucinating that the return of Jesus has arrived through people that have control over a red button. And that's pretty much where we sit right now.
Another, big shift in the mission.
The Galactics came through and said, you have to get to Hawaii.
According to her, when she left her physical body, when she died, she would ascend, her body and her spirit. Or a hole would open up in the ocean, which is why they moved to Hawaii. But evidently they had some problems.
Mom didn't want to go.
She's a stubborn little noodle. Mm-hmm. And Mom's like, I'm not fucking going to Hawaii. And Mom's like, yes.
How to get you to the next place.
All right, let's go. get going on a fucking plane.
But as soon as she landed in Hawaii, all hell broke loose.
How dare you, Alex? You're horny! They busted the window.